Welcome to the Primal Armor Podcast, where we try to help each and every listener strive for a healthier tomorrow. I'm your host, Jeff Kimple, and I'll be covering every aspect within the field of health, helping you build that strong foundation for improving your physical health, mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, and more. It's time to take your personal wellness into your own hands, and Primal Armor is going to help you reach those goals. I just want to thank you for taking the time to tune in and listen to today's topic. Enjoy. Before we get started into the episode, I just want to take a few seconds to thank today's sponsor, Anchor Podcasts. They allow me to create and edit these podcasts for you guys. They're also the ones who distribute this podcast to other platforms such as Spotify and the Apple Podcast app on your phone, so you guys can listen to it anywhere at any time. It's everything needed all in one app. I encourage you all to get started today. Go download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm and follow the podcast. Welcome to episode 34 of the Primal Armor Podcast. Today, we're going to get right into the show because we have an awesome guest on here today. We've got 3 times CrossFit Games Teen Champion, Dallin Pepper. So I just want to thank you for being here today, man. I know you got a busy schedule, and just to give me the time of the day, I really appreciate that.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So you said that you were going home for the weekend. Were you in school, or what are you doing?
Yeah, so I actually didn't end up going home. Right now, I'm attending Utah State University. It's about 2 hours from my house where my family lives, so it's not too far, but it's good that I can go see them when I want to, and then also just kind of be on my own up here and learn how to do the whole adult thing. So,
Right. What are you majoring in there?
Right now, I have it as finance. So,
okay. What are you looking to do with that?
Well, ideally, I'd like to never use my degree and just continue to compete in CrossFit and run my business Pepper programs and continue just to create businesses. So, I mean, that's using my degree, but essentially,
right.
I would like to not work for anyone.
That's a good way to do it.
So, yeah, I'm excited.
So what age did you actually start playing sports?
I've been playing sports since I can remember. I grew up playing baseball, football, basketball, a little bit of soccer here and there. Baseball was kind of my main thing. I played competitive baseball, traveled all over the country playing, and then started to get really into football once I was in junior high. And then I ended up after 8th grade, I decided that I wanted to pursue this CrossFit thing.
What got you into CrossFit in the first place?
So my parents had my dad started doing CrossFit at a gym. It was a little too far away for him and my mom to both go, so they ended up getting some equipment for the garage, and they had told me, they're like, hey, you should try this out. It'll help you get stronger for other sports, and you'll just become better at all these other things you're doing. And I was like, no, it's kind of dumb. I don't think I want to work out. And then I saw the 2015 CrossFit Games, and that was the first year they had a teenage division. And immediately it sparked my interest, just being a competitive person. And the next day I started and decided I wanted to compete at the CrossFit Games. So
you just randomly started in the garage gym and then end up being a 3 times CrossFit Games champion.
Just like that, straight from garage to the games. No, just kidding. No, yeah, it was good. I started up at Spanish Fort CrossFit about 6 months after I started in the garage and worked with the coaches there, and then slowly just grew working with more and more people. So,
what's your coaching look like now?
Right now I'm with Brute Strength. My coach, I do one-on-one coaching with Matt Torres. He's one of the coaches for Brute. I also work with Coach Nemo from Train, Sink, or Swim. He's my swim coach, does a little bit of running and conditioning stuff for me. And then just working with all the Brute coaches.
So you have a swim coach, just a normal strength coach. Do you focus on any other specifics?
So I got my swim coach and has a couple coaches and a weightlifting coaches, as well as a mindset coach. So I get to work with all of them a little bit here and there, depending on the time of the year and what I'm focusing on.
It's just crazy to see how far the sports came, because back like 10 years ago, you'd basically do it on your own. You'd have your one main head coach, and that'd be it. But now it's
Oh,
gotten
and
so competitive that you even have a mindset coach.
exactly. Yeah. Like, I mean, 10 years ago, you walk in the box, you do the class workout, and maybe hit some extra strength or some rowing after the class, and you're done. But now every decision you make is centered around your goals. So,
Right. It's just like probably the best athlete in the gym was your best athlete in the area, where now you actually have to take in all those other small little specific things.
exactly.
So when you were doing this as a teen, because now you're transitioning into being an adult, how did you like balance that seriousness of being one of the best CrossFit athletes in the teen division with also just being like a kid still? Like how did you separate that and still like have fun?
One thing that's one thing I had to work on a lot. Sometimes I wasn't a kid. I was just so focused, and I don't regret that whatsoever. And over the couple years that I was competing as a teenager, I learned more and more about what the right balance for me is. And I don't think um, but over the years, I learned more and more. And like when I first started, it was like all training. That's all I did. I was asleep before 10 o'clock every night, weighed every single thing I ate. There was no exceptions to that, which was awesome. And it put me in the situation I am now. But I've learned that the right balance for me is in making sure to include that family time and doing other things, enjoying a couple days off here and there. And I think it just really comes down to who you are as a person and what works for you, if that makes
Right.
sense. That was kind of
Yeah,
a lot.
definitely. But I feel like you have the one up edge on other people since like you started so young that that burnout could happen a lot quicker because you're going to be doing this for a lot more years relative to how old you are than a lot of people have been.
Absolutely.
So knowing that at such a young age is so important if you want to keep being successful and being competitive in the sport.
Absolutely. And I mean, so after my, let's see, what would have been? So 2019 CrossFit Games, leading up to that, the spring before I played baseball at my high school, had a blast right after the 2019 games. I played football, and having that opportunity to kind of step away from CrossFit for just a little bit. Most of 2019 was absolutely insane for me, playing baseball and football, and had so many that really allowed me to come back and refocus and uh, understand the importance of taking time away from the sport so you can still be passionate about it.
Oh, for sure. But now how do you mix in that with like training full time now? Do you have to train a lot harder now? Like you can't mix in those sports? Is it a lot
Um,
harder that you have to do this full time?
I don't think so because I've been doing it full time and I'm not in high school anymore, so I don't really. I mean, I'm not gonna go walk on to the football team here at Utah State or anything like that. But making sure I spend time out of the gym, hiking, playing spike ball, hanging out with family. Uh, but I've been put in a really great situation uh, with where I'm at right now that I love every second of the day. I'm doing what I love uh, with people I love being around, so it's awesome. I no complaints here. So.
That's awesome. I know you just mentioned a few of your hobbies, but yeah, what do you like to do in your free time when you're not training?
So probably one of the number one things, it's more work, but I started my own business, Pepper Programs. So I create workout programs for specific movements. I do one-on-one coaching and then just your everyday programming for different levels of athletes. I love working on that business. I really enjoy reading different books, mindset books, that time with my girlfriend, just outdoors doing things.
It sounds like you got it going for you, man.
I'm loving life. That's my goal, is just to love every single day and help people in any way I can. So
So, what's your outlook like going forward with the CrossFit competitive world? I know that this year wasn't the greatest year just because you went from 3 times straight CrossFit Teens Champion to that. Now you're the small fish in the big pond. But what's it look like going
uh-huh.
forward for you?
So that first the open last year, like I said, I was playing football, so it wasn't a way to level up, like test myself to the men. But when I made the transition from teenage division to the men's division, I felt like I was 14 years old again and had no idea what I was doing. Like
Right.
these guys are all on a whole new level. And then with the craziness that this year has brought, it actually, for me personally, worked out great. I wasn't planning on being able to qualify this year, but luckily I still had access to a gym through all the crazy COVID stuff and whatever. So I was still able to train every single day. And this year turned out to be one of the best training years, and I'm looking forward to next year. And my number one goal is to qualify for the CrossFit Games next year.
Is there any sanctionals that you've been looking at that you really want to try to get to?
Nothing that I've like seriously looked into yet. Right now I'm just focused on the open, but like a goal of mine would obviously to be to compete at the Rogue Invitational. And then me and my buddies would all like to qualify for some of the sanctionals down in South America, just because they're a little smaller. Prize money's not as big, so some of those top guys aren't going to be at those ones. And then hopefully earn our way to compete with them.
Plus, then you get to travel to some places that you probably wouldn't have gotten to
Exactly,
if it wasn't
yeah,
the
for
situation. Sure. Where did you place in the Open last year?
Honestly, I have zero idea. I did the workouts one time and barely checked the leaderboard.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
But it's going to be crazy seeing how now that you can completely focus on CrossFit instead of just like, yeah, I was in high school and I was doing baseball and I was doing football. It's going to be crazy to see that you have a full year of just straight dedication, especially with how crazy this year's been, that there's really nothing else you can do. You really can't go out and do much other than train. So it's going to be interesting to see where you stack up versus everyone else in the field.
Yeah, I mean, I've got my coaches some other really competitive teens and also kids that are my age that just aged up into the men's division. And we've been comparing workout times with each other. And I know a couple games athletes pretty well, and we're always messaging each other. And it seems like I'm right where I need to be. So hopefully I can show that in the Open.
And you're right where you need to be, and you're, 18 years old?
Almost 19. Yep.
You have to throw that in there, but still, you're 18 years old, and you're probably competing with some of the best of the best, so that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and then, like, one thing that I always try and remind myself is, like, my prime isn't going to be for 10 more years. I mean, Matt Fraser's 31, I think. So I'm hoping to hit my prime around 27, 28 years old and then ride it out from there. So
by then, Matt's still going to be in his prime, so you're still going to have some work.
Seriously.
Real talk. Who do you think would win? Prime Froning, Prime Fraser?
Fraser. I love Rich Froning, and I hate to say it, but Matt is fitter and more well-rounded.
I think the way they do things these days, it's just everyone has to be more well-rounded.
Absolutely, yeah.
But just like competitive drive and who would actually want to die more, I feel like that would be Froning in his prime of like 2013.
I do agree with that. Like, Froning will suffer. I think it's hard to compare just because, like, if I were to go to the CrossFit Games where I am now, like in 2012, 13, I probably would
have won.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like crazy to think about because a bunch of us did heavy DT, a bunch of my buddies, and they did that at the 2015 games, and we all smoked the top time by like a minute and a half, 2 minutes.
Right.
So it's hard to compare Froning and Fraser, I think, but I do think Fraser's fitter.
It's just like the comparison of Michael Jordan versus LeBron.
Exactly.
You can't ever make the comparison because they played in two different eras, but everyone still likes to do it because it's fun to do. For sure. Yep. But you got the leverage too because you can say you have 3 times more team championships than Froning or Fraser. So if you start winning a few regular games ones, you can start saying that, hey, I have something you guys don't, so I'm the real
Exactly. There we go. I always like to bring up the fact that me and Tia have won the CrossFit Games the same amount of times as of right now.
Exactly. You can start saying like, yeah, Matt's won 4, Rich has won 4, Tia's won 3, and I've won 3. I'm in the Mount Rushmore of faces of CrossFit right now.
No, yeah, it's fun. Teenage division's definitely different, but it was a blast.
I mean, you don't have to add the teenage name in there. If you're just 3 times games champion, you're not lying.
There we go.
Okay, so I just want to know your opinion on this. with all the stuff with like Greg Glassman going on and over the summer and stuff, and the transition to Eric Rosa just taking over, where do you think the sport's gonna go now? Do you think it's gonna grow, or do you think it's kind of fading away?
So I've actually had some really cool opportunities. My agent was able to set up a call with Dave Castro as well as Eric Rosa for all of his athletes to get on and just talk to them and ask questions, as well as I've been blessed. I got invited by Brent Fikowski to be one of the members of the Professional Fitness Athlete Association. So I've been able to kind of be behind the scenes, and I am pumped for the future of CrossFit. Eric Rosa is the perfect man for the job. He understands what it's like to own an affiliate. He understands what it's like, how CrossFit has grown over 10 years. He's been doing it for 12 years. And then he's a huge fan of the sport and wants to see that grow. And based on what I have heard, we're bringing tons of media back. The CrossFit Games season is a huge focus, as well as making sure the affiliates and the everyday gym goers are well taken care of. So I see the sport continuing to grow immensely.
Good, because that's good to hear. I know I was excited when I saw that Eric Rosa was taking over, and he was an affiliate owner himself.
Mm-hmm.
And then just seeing kind of Castro take over a little more responsibility himself, because you always felt like he was the figurehead, because no one really knew Greg Glassman was. He was just kind of off to the side and just being kind of like a weird little scientist to it all.
Exactly. And I think that's part of the reason why after 2018, Glassman was making sure his name was heard after that season was over, which kind of sucked, but that's
right.
Okay.
Because like CrossFit was known as the sport and not what he wanted it to.
Yep.
But now I feel like CrossFit's actually just going to be like known as the sport of CrossFit and keep kind of taking off.
And people are going to, I mean, the sport matters just as much as the affiliates and the health of everyone. Honestly, the health part's so cool to me. But I think there's going to be equal focus and both will continue to grow. So,
where do you see CrossFit in like 5 years from now?
I mean, let's see. I see the competitions being way bigger. I see CrossFit hopefully signing with an ESPN type figure to help broadcast in the entire season and not just the CrossFit Games. I think that's a big goal of theirs. And then Eric Rosa also mentioned he really wants to make sure the athletes are taken care of so that they can continue to compete in the sport as professionals and not have to work other jobs that take away from training. So I think it's just going to become more and more professional.
That's awesome. Do you feel like Rogue's going to have a big deal in that going forward, not Reebok?
I do see Rogue kind of stepping up a little more, and then I don't think they'll partner with any brand like Reebok or Nike. I could see it being the Rogue CrossFit Games before either of those two.
That's what I figured too, because I feel like they got to have some bigger sponsorships like that to be able to like cover the bills. But you're Mr. Finance over here now, so you should be able to tell me a little bit more.
I just started. I'm in my first semester.
No, come on, you should know a lot from those intro classes.
Oh, absolutely, the English and communications.
Right. So where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I'd like to win the CrossFit Games in 5 years. That's what
I like to hear.
That's what I'm giving my timeline for.
I was hoping for I'd like to have 5 CrossFit Games finishes in that time.
No, I'm going to give myself next year I'm qualifying, next year top 20, next year top 10, then I'm fighting for the podium. So, and that can change quickly.
What are you focusing on in your training? Like what are your strong suits and what do you hate to do that you've been trying to work on to get better at?
So, one thing that luckily I've been focusing on since I was 13 is strength. And right now I'm strong enough to compete with the men. A lot of my lifts are competitive with them. So right now I'm solely getting ready for the open, doing tons of burpees, tons of gymnastics, thrusters, all of the stuff that we'll see in the open. That's my number one focus.
That's awesome. Does your coach pretty much program everything for you, or do you get to do some stuff on your own?
He programs everything day to day, and then if I'm feeling good, I'll add some stuff in, mostly just handstand push-up work because I need to do those like 5 times a week to get better at them.
Everyone does. That's not a fun movement for anyone.
No, they're definitely my biggest weakness, but we're getting better.
What's your most hated movement?
I don't know. I try not to hate any movements. It used to be dumbbell box step overs, but I've learned to like those. Um, let's see. I guess we'll go with strict handstand push-ups. Not that I hate them, but they give me the most trouble. We'll go with that.
I'll tell you what, devil's presses have been starting to come up more and more lately, and I have a love-hate relationship with them.
They're disgusting, but they get the job done.
Right, like you don't have to do that many of them, and you feel good, which by feeling good means you feel like death.
Exactly.
But man, they sneak up on you real quick.
Oh yeah, they have the hinge. Your shoulders will get tired. Your grip gets tired. Your breathing's through the roof. Yeah.
Man, it was good talking to you today. I appreciate you kind of giving me some of like the behind the scenes stuff.
Of course.
That's stuff that we don't get to understand or hear because we don't have those type of connections with some of the more prominent people in the CrossFit world.
And I'm lucky to have my agent who figures that out. So shout out to Coop.
Right. You don't have to do any of the dirty work. You just got to go do the fun stuff.
Exactly. He takes good care of me. I appreciate him. So
that's awesome. Well, hey man, it's been awesome having you on the show today, and I really
thank you for having me.
And I really want to thank you for just giving me some of your time today to come on here.
Of course.
So keep up the good work and good luck this year with qualifying for the Open, the Sanctionals, and hopefully we'll be seeing you compete on the CrossFit Games floor next year.
Absolutely.